Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our Speedcast coverage of this year's National Autosport Association National Championships. It's going to be a fantastic race here in Mid-Ohio. H1 green, green, green. Landrum, your pole sitter, did not get a great start. Good run for Martinez. He's going to look to the inside of Dabrowski coming up. We have a new leader, Mark Bennett, and both against together. Evasive maneuvers. Rocco's your national champion, Bernardo Martinez. Joe Fryman, Carl Troy, Griswold, Joe Moser, Jeff Birch.
The National Autosport Association Factory 5 Challenge National Championship is brought to you by Factory 5 Racing. You have to turn a wrench before you can turn this key. And by Toyo Tires, driven to perform.
Welcome once again to the 2008 NASA Championships. I'm Kevin Arnett alongside Clark Camburn for the Factory 5 Challenge. Clark, what can you tell us about these cars?
Well, as you can see, these Factory 5 cars are kind of a vintage Shelby Cobra look-alike. It's a replica car, so it's got a fiberglass body built by Factory 5, and underneath is a purpose-built tube-frame race car with a 5-liter Mustang engine in it. And this is what we would call a kit car, which means that the drivers or owners of these cars will purchase a kit from Factory 5, which is the company that makes the cars, and then they'll go out and get a donor car, donor Mustang for an engine, transmission, rear end, and they put the car together and they can go racing with it.
Let's take a look at what happened last year in this race.
Brian Dobbins started from the pole in the 2007 Factory 5 Challenge event, but Paul Kaiser jumped into the early lead, followed by David Standridge, Dobbins, and Team Boothman-Eves. Kaiser led for the first half until a mistake in the final corners allowed Standridge to move past. Standridge held on for the win, followed closely by Paul Kaiser.
Starting on the pole for this Factory 5 Challenge event is Scott McKay. Alongside him is Paul Kaiser. Gary McDaniel starts third. Then it's T.C. McNett and Peter LaRose.
Carl W. Thompson will start sixth. Kevin Eves starts seventh. Richard Norgrove will start eighth. Rick Anderson ninth. And Andy Switlick will start 10th. And this is going to be an interesting race because you can see the very last row there, those two blue cars. That's last year's national champion, David Standridge, and John George, also very quick this week. George crashed during one of the qualifying races, which put him in the back, and Standridge actually missed a race because he had some prior work commitments. So it'd be interesting to watch those two guys come up through the field.
Looking at things from Paul Kaiser's point of view outside of the front row, and we'll see the pace car dive to the inside there. And the cars will be looking for green. Pace car's off, and green flag is out. We're underway.
Here the cars throttle up as they run down through the kink, down into turn 6. You can see McKay on the inside there, trying to take the advantage away from Kaiser going into turn 1.
You can already see well in back some of those back runners jumping into position from the back. It'll be McKay out in front.
It'll
Kaiser
like,
second.
It'll look like McNatt and McDaniel kind of getting together there. They're side by side going through turn 5.
Back behind them, it's Carl Thompson and Peter LaRose.
And you can see John George making it 3 wide coming through the field as he comes towards the front.
Out in front, Scott McKay heads down into Thunder Valley, chased by Paul Kaiser.
And you can see T.C. McNett able to take the advantage away from McDaniel. So McNett slots into third. And you can see Kaiser already working on Scott McKay, trying to find a way around him as they go into the final corner onto the front straightaway.
And those two cars already putting some distance between themselves and the rest of the field.
Yeah, it's impressive. Those two guys broke away right away. And this is really what they want to do, is try and build a little bit of a gap on the rest of the field so that they can fight it out amongst themselves, especially knowing that George and Standridge have the whole field of Factory 5 Roadsters to work their way through before they can come up to the front.
Paul Kaiser's jumped to the outside, heading into the keyhole. Is a little bit of an advantage. Can he maintain that through the turn and down the back straight?
Man, drag race down the back straightaway. That was impressive. Kaiser got a really good run out of one. Side by side, takes it around the outside going into two.
That's about the toughest place to pass on this track there is, I think.
And it doesn't look like he's going to get it done. He's going to slot back in, it looks like. Yep.
Now he jumps to the inside, coming into madness.
No, they thought better of that. You don't want to throw it away too early, Paul. Now on board with Kaiser as he heads over.
Look at him work that steering wheel.
Yeah, this is a cool thing we see, these Factory 5 cars. You can see the guy's hands, and you can see how hard he's working that wheel on cold tires right now.
Scott McKay, driver out of Bradenton, Florida, maintaining that lead.
Paul Kaiser was second in last year's net. Ooh, and McKay drops a wheel off there, coming out of 9. It's an easy place to drop a wheel off, and it used to be that the wall was right next to the track there. If you got just a little bit sideways, you could end up kissing the concrete. But they moved the wall back a little bit, so it's a little bit safer, and a little bit more room to sort of play through there.
Boy, you really see McKay sliding around in his machine.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to watch these cars because they have a fair amount of horsepower. And decent grip, but they do squirm around a little bit, and you can see the drivers really have to drive these cars to make them go fast.
McKay and Kaiser continue to put some distance between themselves. It's now T.C. McNett in third, Gary McDaniel fourth, and Carl Thompson in the fifth position.
And that's Kevin Eves in the green car just behind Thompson, and you can see John George just behind Kevin Eves. So George working up well.
What a battle developing back here in this third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh position.
So Thompson looking in the inside of McDaniel now. And you can see Kevin Eves kind of giving him a push there. And again, you can see that...
Oh, McKay gets a little loose there. Slid it sideways, and Kaiser will take advantage.
Yeah, McKay just got in a little bit hot, dropped a wheel off, and Kaiser was able to move around the outside in turn 5. So Kaiser's going to move into the lead now. And you got to believe that McKay's kind of kicking himself for that because, obviously very quick today. He's been quick all week. He's been dominant in the qualifying races, and then to drop a wheel off like that, it has to be kind of frustrating.
He won the races on Friday and Saturday. Matter of fact, he was fast in the warm-up this morning and looked to be the car to beat from the pole, but Kaiser has taken the spot.
Yeah, and we'll see if McKay can battle back. Obviously, Kaiser is not getting away at this point, and McKay may be satisfied to just drop into his draft and wait and sort of save his car a little bit and see if he can come up with something later in the race.
Now on board, John George started back in 15th position, trying to get past Carl Thompson III at this point.
So George slips to the inside. Looks like he's going to get that done through turn 1. It's kind of a gutsy pass, very quick corner. And he's going to set his sights on Kevin Eves, who's working on
McDaniel
right now.
McDaniel in the 95X car.
So Eves looking on the inside of McDaniel as they go through the keyhole. Looks like he may get that pass done. Great racing back here for this, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th spot.
And because of that, the top two continue to extend their lead on the field.
And that's also allowed T.C. McNett to pull out a bit of a gap. So T.C. McNett has a little bit of breathing room in his quest for a podium finish.
And it's McDaniels, Eves, and George and Thompson back behind him now.
Man, look at this. Side by side all the way through the S's. This is awesome racing. Now on board with Thompson, you can see he's sawing at the wheel too, but not quite as much. Now the tires are warmed up, things have settled down a little bit, so they're still working the cars, but not quite as hard as they were earlier in the race when the tires were cold.
On board with Carl Thompson III, headed for Thunder Valley one more time. Out in front of him, John George. Just in front of him, Gary McDaniel.
So they'll work their way through turn 11, then into the carousel.
Here we see our leaders. Paul Kaiser out in front, driver out of Troutville, Virginia. coming down to put another lap in the books.
And you can see what the gap is there. You know, those guys are already on the front straightaway as the sort of third, fourth, fifth pack works their way into the carousel. So big gap already as they almost have the stretch from 1 to 2 locked up on this pack behind.
Now we see in that shot David Standridge in the picture back there behind Pete LaRose. Peter LaRose in the red car.
And Standridge is the blue car at the tail end of that pack. As we said, Standridge last year's champion, trying to work his way up. We can see George taking a look on the inside of McDaniel now. So George may get this done down the back straightaway. And this is key for both George and Standridge. They have to get around these cars now because they don't have that much time to catch those leaders, and there's already a huge gap. And you can see that George wasn't able to get that done. It was McDaniel fighting back on the outside, able to hold off the position, and they're side by side through 5 now.
And now Eves has moved up on McNett. McNett had begun to pull away, but Eves has reeled him in, and he'll battle for that position.
So we're going to have a battle for 3rd, a battle for 5th. This is great racing. And this is really a testament to the Factory 5 formula that these cars are so close all the way through the pack, and these guys are able to race side by side, lap after lap. And really, I mean, we've maybe seen a little bit of rubbing here and there, but honestly, very clean racing all the way through.
And Eves has moved past McNett, as we see things from John George's point of view. So in that 3rd position is Kevin Eves. TC McNett is next, and then John George.
So now George going to take a look at McNett. McNett was looking strong early on, but has dropped back a little bit. Now we move back up to the leaders.
Scott McKay once again putting pressure on Paul Kaiser, pushing him hard.
Yeah, McKay is not letting Kaiser get away. He's right there, not going to let Kaiser get any breathing room at all.
Looks like he's sitting just outside him just to make sure that Kaiser can see him in that right-hand mirror the whole time. And now, is he making a move on the inside as they come through, headed towards Madness here?
He takes a look every once in a while, kind of pokes the nose in there, trying to feel Kaiser out. And this is really the time of the race when you start to think about where am I quicker, where are my strengths, where are his weaknesses, and how can I set him up for a pass later on.
And back to this gaggle of cars, we see McNett, George, Eves there, McDaniel. This is from Carl Thompson's point of view.
This is awesome. Yeah, this is everybody side by side. I mean, this is like a circle track race. Everybody side by side, lap after lap, corner after corner, switching in and out. It was great racing.
That 3rd position has changed 2 or 3 times in the last lap or so. McNett now seems to have it at this point.
And George taking a look on the outside. That usually doesn't work too well, but he might be able to cross over. He's going to go on the outside of the carousel.
Another tough place to pass here on this track.
He might get it done, though. Side by side on the front straightaway. Now McNett's going to cross back over. Look on the inside going into 1.
George will have the position as they come to the start-finish.
But that's McNett. McNett gets it back from George.
As they head off of turn 1. Set their sights for the keyhole once again.
And now Kevin Eves will try and capitalize on that as well. Now on board with Carl Thompson again as we see these cars dicing around.
And there goes Standridge on the outside. Dave Standridge in the 83 car. Once again, he started dead last on the field, and he's moved up into that, I believe it's the 8th position.
Yeah, Standridge had a look on the outside there of Thompson, but it looked like he slid wide a little bit in the carousel. So Thompson will hold on to that spot. And it looked like George temporarily had 3rd taken over, but, they're
Carl
not getting it
Thompson
up.
goes by Kevin Eves.
Yeah, so Thompson gets by Eves. TC McNett gets back by George. McDaniel's still lurking.
Man, this is good racing.
It is, although it's got to be frustrating for George because he knows time is running out. He's got to get around these guys, and so does Standridge if they want a shot at the podium. once again on board with Thompson. You can see George taking a look on the inside.
McNett and George running side by side once again as they head down into Thunder Valley one more time.
And probably somebody needs to tell these guys you're not supposed to go side by side through these corners. Nobody gave them the memo. So side by side through 11 now. George oh man.
And there goes Standridge past Carl Thompson.
So now Standridge goes around the outside of Thompson, and Thompson looks like he's off the pace.
Carl Thompson, yes, appears to be as now Peter LaRose has moved past him as well.
Yeah, Thompson kind of went wide there and now dropping back. We'll see as they come out of turn 1. We'll see if we can see anything wrong with that car.
Yeah, it looks like there's smoke or steam or something coming off that machine.
Something coming off that machine. So he may have a problem. That may be, looks like he's pulling off. So
and he's taking it off the track.
That's unfortunate for Thompson. It looks like that's going to be terminal.
Meanwhile, it's George and McNett continuing to battle. For third place this is. Don't see the leaders because they've checked out. Paul Kaiser and Scott McKay are nowhere to be seen from John George's point of view.
So George looked like he cut around McNett. He's going to have the advantage as they go into 6. And you can see Standridge is right there as well.
Kevin Eves challenging McNett for that position. McDaniel's right there alongside Standridge. None of these drivers backing off on anybody.
So McNett in that yellow car with kind of the purple flame nose. Just behind him, that dark green car is Kevin Eves. You can see now John George has pulled out a bit of a gap on McNett. So George is going to try and pull away, try and catch the leaders now.
Finally separates himself from that group of cars. Did that rather quickly, actually, once he got to that point.
Yeah, you can certainly see that the reason that he caught this pack so quickly is that he's significantly faster than these guys, and I think you'll see him pull out quite a gap on them. And honestly, I think once Standridge gets around him, you're going to see the same thing from him.
And it's got to be frustrating for Standridge as he watches the action in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And these guys know that the leaders are long gone. I mean, they may not know how far away they are, but certainly they do know that there's quite a gap there. And really their hope now in terms of winning a national championship is to try and get around this pack and get in a position to where if there is a full course caution, they can potentially challenge for the lead.
It's just kind of one car at a time, and Standridge now on the inside making a move past McDaniel.
I'd like to thank Factory 5 Racing, the manufacturer of the Factory 5 Challenge car, for their generous support of the Factory 5 Challenge Speedcast, as well as Toyo Tires, the presenting sponsor of the NASA Championships. So Eve's not able to get it done as they come out of turn 4 into 5, and Standridge right there.
Kevin Eves pushing hard on TC McNett. Standridge kind of sitting back, waiting for something to happen between those two. Meanwhile, John George continues to put some distance between himself. He's third place. We don't see first and second.
Yeah, and it looks like McNett may have, was a little bit quicker early on, and may have faded a little bit here. And obviously he's a little bit slower than Kevin Eves at this point, a little bit slower than Standridge, so we'll see if he's able to hold them off for fourth.
We see him coming through the carousel once again. That's John George, T.C. McNett, Kevin Eves, and Dave Standridge. Back behind them, Gary McDaniel and Peter LaRose. And all of these cars have pretty much put the rest of the field far behind them. Now back on board with Paul Kaiser, your leader.
And you can see every lap, it's kind of funny. Kaiser takes kind of an unusual line when he comes out of the keyhole, and I think that he's trying to break the draft a little bit, so he nips over to the inside as soon as he gets out of the keyhole. Sort of an odd thing to do, but it seems to be working because he's opened up a bit of a gap on Scott McKay now.
Paul Kaiser heads through the S's over towards turns 5 and 6 now.
And that's certainly what you want to see is clear track out front. And one of the things that Kaiser's got to be thinking about is that, like a lot of NASA championship races, there are other classes on the track right now. And so he's going to be having to deal with Camaro Mustang Challenge, which is another class on the track at the moment. and eventually they'll be lapping the Camaro Mustang Challenge cars. So he's obviously probably wants to build a little bit of a gap on McKay so that when he does catch the slower cars, he's able to sort of hold on to his lead.
And you can see as they come through the carousel and onto the front straight once again that the other cars are nowhere to be seen. They've built up probably a 5 or 10 second lead at this point, it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we can see, here come the Camaro Mustang Challenge cars into the picture. So in the next couple of laps, that's who Kaiser's going to be catching. And, try and hold on to that lead as they work their way through traffic. McKay kind of poking to the inside again. Just kind of worries Kaiser. You can see McKay just sort of worrying him all the time. You want to fill his mirrors. You don't want him ever to be able to just focus on the road ahead and try and force him into a mistake, force him to use up his car early, and then potentially get around him late in the race.
And once again, he jumps to the inside as they come to turn number 4, challenging for the lead.
Oh, it's the best McKay. It's the best run he's had, but not able to get it done.
Took a shot at him. Looks like both of them might have got a little loose there as they came through the S's.
Yeah, big power slide out of both cars, but McKay just not able to get it done up the inside. That's a hard pass to make, especially if you dive in real deep like that. If the other guy's got his head on straight, you can usually hang on to that lead.
Meanwhile, that's David Standridge that's moved past T.C. McNett. Oh, those two get awfully close. I don't know if they touched. They got very close as they came through the S's there.
Yeah, so it looks like Kevin Eves has faded a little bit, and Standridge is able to get around McNett.
And we had a chance to catch up with David Standridge earlier and ask him how his week's going and how he thinks the race is going to shake out today.
This year it's a little bit more difficult because I actually missed Friday's qualifying session. Yeah, because I was actually in Japan working all week, and I just flew in last night. So I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. Well, I definitely would not be able to do this without my crew chief, Billy. It's all about the car. I mean, everybody's fast. You got to have a good car, and Billy's the guy who preps my car, and I couldn't do it without him.
So back to racing action. Interesting to hear from Standridge just about how his week's been going. Had a commitment in Japan that he had to honor, and so here he is. But looks like he's running down John George for third place. So good run for dead last on the field.
Yeah, this is your 07 national champion, Dave Standridge, driver out of San Martin, California. And he's got a ways to go to get back up there. At this point, maybe he's just hoping for a podium finish. But pushing it hard in the number 83 car.
Yeah, we can see now that Kaiser is in the middle of traffic now. So he's got some Camaro Mustang Challenge cars to work around, some Spec 944 cars, and you can see Kaiser is right on his tail. So Kaiser's going to push hard. McKay's going to push hard to get around Kaiser as they work their way through traffic.
This could be a key portion of the race as they make their way through lap traffic. Where do they encounter those cars on the racetrack? Does one have a better opportunity to pass than the other one does?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really what Kaiser wants to do. He wants to control the race right now, pick his spots to pass, and do it in a way that it potentially holds off McKay or even hurts him a little bit. If you can catch and pass these cars in the right spot and the guy behind you has to wait, half a lap to get around, then it can be a huge advantage. So we'll see now who's better in traffic. And it can be hard for these guys to pass these CMC cars. They're big, heavy cars, and they're having a very fierce fight for their own race. And they don't want to give up any room to these Factory 5 cars.
I don't think they're going to move aside for these cars. They've got their own race on their mind, and they're not giving way to anybody.
Oh, and that was key. You could see Kaiser going very deep into turn 4, able to get around both of those CMC cars, and that was key. We'll see now if McKay. Now, see, McKay is still behind them, so McKay's going to have to wait, and this could give Kaiser the kind of advantage that he was looking for. You can already see McKay's losing precious time waiting to get around those CMC cars.
Not another good place to pass until they get down here towards the carousel or maybe even the front straight for McKay to get around those cars. Kaiser stretches out that lead just a little bit now.
So gutsy move on Kaiser's part. It breaks very deep into turn 4, and it pays off for him. Now he's going to have a few more cars to work around, but you can already see he's opened up a little bit of a gap just by pulling that one move off.
Now let's see if Scott McKay's got the motor to get back up to him as he makes his way past that one more CMC car there.
Now drop back to the battle for third. You can see Standridge. TC McNett's still there. Greg McDaniel's still there as well. And it looks like Standridge may be closing a little bit on George.
Oh, and that's McDaniel going around. Gary McDaniel loops the number 95X, and that'll allow Peter LaRose to get past him. Back on track. I don't know what happened with McDaniel there.
Yeah, it's so easy to loop it in that corner. You know, the fast way through the carousel is to carry a little bit extra speed in and let the tail kind of come around. And you do sort of a controlled spin in the middle of the corner, and sometimes it becomes an uncontrolled spin, and that's what ends up happening. So unfortunate for McDaniel to go off like that and end up in the grass. He had a very good run going, and unfortunately that's going to drop him back a bit.
And we see our leaders coming through 5 and 6 once again, and you see that McKay has made it past the lap cars. He'll set his sights on Kaiser, pushing hard in that 64 car.
And McKay is working very hard. You can see him sideways through every corner, trying to make that time back up. He knows he has to get this time made up. He has to catch back up with Kaiser. He has to work around traffic quickly because they're running out of time. We're working lap 13 right now, so not that many laps to go.
So once again, coming up on some more lap traffic, and as we mentioned before, it'll just depend on where they encounter it on the racetrack. This may be an advantage for McKay, it may be an advantage for Kaiser. Just depends on where it happens.
Yeah, it looks like Kaiser's going to catch this guy, going into turn 2, which is good, and hopefully for him, he'll be able to work around this next group of cars going down the back straightaway, because if he does get caught behind them, going through the S's, then he's going to lose a bit of time, and that'll allow McKay to catch back up.
On board with Paul Kaiser, once again, your leader in the Factory 5 Challenge at the NASA Championships.
So 4 laps to go now. They'll work their way into 6. He wasn't able to catch these cars quite quick enough, so they will hold him up a bit. He'll probably try and get around them on the back side of the track or potentially into the front straightaway. You can see a slower Factory 5 Challenge car there. He's able to work around that guy with ease. And these are actually the CMC leaders, so if he's able to get around these 3 cars, then he should be clear for the rest of the race.
He'll work his way back down into Thunder Valley one more time. Maybe setting himself up for a pass here through the carousel, or perhaps on the front straight as we get close to the start-finish line.
Yeah, certainly front straight would be the preferred spot. Oh, and Kaiser's slowing.
What's going on with Paul Kaiser? Kaiser off the pace, and Rose blast on by. Scott McKay takes the lead. What happened to Kaiser? Man, he was running so good, and there you see him, definitely off pace, rolling to a stop just before the start-finish line.
Oh, Paul Kaiser grinds to a halt. We'll have a replay here in just a second. Something went wrong there.
Let's see if we can listen on board with him to see if we can hear what happened.
Yeah, it just, the engine just quits
cut
running.
off. Perhaps electrical. Hard to say.
Yeah, I didn't see any smoke.
It didn't sound mechanical.
Yeah, and certainly there's no knock, and there was no sign. Car was running strong before that, and
man, what a change of events! And now Scott McKay, what does this do to his race?
Well, Scott McKay now, huge lead. He's just got to keep it clean and get it done. Just a few laps left. Take it easy. He's got a huge gap, but anytime you see something like that, you start to think, this is going to happen to me too.
Yeah, this is when you start hearing every little noise in your car and wondering if that's going to be something that's going to take you out.
Well, this is what we talked about. Anything can happen in one of these races, and you just never know. Now, John George started 15th, and he's running second. And Dave Standridge is on the podium in third after starting shotgun on the field.
See the safety crew bringing out the tow strap, and they'll have to pull Paul Kaiser off the track.
And we'll see if this brings out. I don't think this is going to bring out full course yellow. I think they'll just throw a local yellow.
He's out of the way there on the front straight, so as we see McKay come by him one more time, and what a turn of events.
And Heartbreak for Kaiser. Such a good run. Masterful drive. Beautiful drive through traffic. And just to have the car quit like that is just a heartbreak. So now I'm board with George.
This is your second place car. Now he's really hoping for some kind of a yellow. I imagine he saw the Kaiser go off, and he was hoping that there might be a full course yellow at this point because he wants to get up and race with Scott McKay.
Yeah, by this time he knows that he is in second. And a couple laps to go. It's hard to say if they went full course now. I doubt that we would get back to racing again. So it may not be, but it looks like they're going to be able to get Kaiser off the track without any incident. So I think we'll stay green for the remainder.
And John George, he's looking out in front and sees nobody in front of him. Scott McKay has put a big gap on the rest of the field, and he's just taking it easy at this point, I would imagine.
And George, very unusual line out of the keyhole. Something not quite right there. I'm not sure, whether that car got sideways or if there may be something wrong with the engine, something like that. But you can see, rather than taking the car all the way over to the outside as he exited the keyhole, he kind of juked over to the right. So we'll have to keep an eye on George. We may see more problems before this race finishes. And Dave Standridge, we're not seeing him right now because we're on board with George, but Standridge is right there. So, Standridge not too far back. You can see him there, maybe 6-7 car lengths back. So Standridge certainly still in the hunt for, potentially a second place finish now. You can see T.C. McNett still running a solid fourth place, I guess that would be.
Yeah, the big race between these cars sorted itself out. I don't know whether they used themselves up or what happened, but now not much competition at this point in the race.
So it's going to be 2 to go. This time by for John George, and we can see Standridge is closing. Even in that half a lap, looked like Standridge made up some time. So, as we said, there may be a problem with George or something may be going on because Standridge is coming. And you can see George kind of waving.
And sure enough, Standridge moves by.
And Standridge moving around into second. So, George kind of waved him by. Again, I'm not sure what's going on with John George. Looks like he has good straightaway speed, but chose to let Standridge by, so that's going to promote Standridge to second.
Once again, Dave Standridge started dead last on the field in 16th position, now sits second. And it'd been interesting if he had been up towards the front at the start of this race. It'd have been interesting to see if he had had anything for either Kaiser or McKay at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And all this stuff kind of speaks to... one of the neat things about this class is that these guys, in many cases, also built these cars. So not only are you, competing as a driver, but you're also competing really as a mechanic.
Scott McKay just took the white flag there.
Yep,
One lap to go.
McKay well out front. I mean, you can see here we're working our way through turn 10, and McKay is all the way into turn 1 at this point. So McKay well up front. No worries from him. Just got to cruise home, bring it home.
Not much lap traffic to deal with at this point for Scott McKay.
Yeah, he's gotten around the CMC leader, so he's really got clear sailing all the way home.
Once again, I'm sure his ears are highly tuned to that car and what's going on underneath him,
Yeah, absolutely. You're thinking, I tightened that bolt. Did I remember this? Did I remember that? And you just kind of keep your fingers crossed that everything's okay and holds together for one more lap. So McKay will work his way into turn 4. He'll go up through turn 5 over the top of the hill and down into the backside of the track.
I think he's just taking it easy, trying to stay ahead of those CMC cars, but doesn't really want to catch the cars that are in front of him.
Sure, we saw big slides from him earlier, and you can see that car is just tracking real nice now. Nothing too fancy, nothing too hard for him. Through turn 9, and you can see there are some lap cars in front of him. He doesn't need to catch those guys. He doesn't want to catch those guys. He just wants to maintain, where he is right now for the remainder of the lap through turn 11, and then he'll go down through the carousel and come home to take the checkered flag.
There you see him coming to the final turn. It'll be Scott McKay keeping it running and across the start-finish line, and Scott McKay will win the national championship in the Factory 5 Challenge.
Now on board with George, and George is caught back up to Standridge, just a couple corners left.
This is a battle for second.
And Standridge working his way around a lap car, and that's going to make the difference.
A lap car there. I think that may have slowed George up just a little bit. Took away any chance he had of getting by Standridge, as Standridge will come down and take the checkers. George will be third.
Absolutely. Standridge with the masterful run, starting shotgun on the field all the way up to second. John George starts 15th all the way up to third. Great drives on both of those guys' parts.
And T.C. McNett will finish fourth, and Gary McDaniel will finish in the 5th position.
And Peter LaRose will finish 6th. Robert Walter will finish 7th. Karen Savaggio is 8th. And Kevin Eves.
Kevin Eves in the 85
9th.
car.
Richard Norgrove in 10th. So, great racing today, Kevin. Saw some good action from the Factory 5 cars. And a lot of side-by-side racing. Really good stuff. And, just overall, great class to watch. Looks like a lot of fun to drive these cars.
Oh, they sure do. It looks like those guys are having a real good time. They race each other hard, but they race each other clean. Thanks for watching once again this Speedcast production of the NASA Championships. Join us next time for the Spec E30 races here at Mid-Ohio.